Hello, and welcome to Dream Cinema. For the past 5 years, the Step Jayne album Silver Bullet Suicide has been released one track at a time with an accompanying video. For the next 10 months in Dream Cinema, I will be exploring each track and video with a co-host. This month in Dream Cinema, I speak with photographer, art curator, self-proclaimed gardener, and most recently added title, father, Jesse Vasquez. His work explores the many layers of meaning that humans have placed on their own form throughout history. He primarily explores this through photography. We encourage you to watch the Step Jayne music video, Porque la Gente Esta Sonando, prior to listening to our conversation. Thank you, and we'll see you there.
This isn't why you came.
I'm doing good. I'm excited to chat with you. Jesse Vasquez, gardener, curator, photographer, and recently father. Congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's some wild shit.
I mean, honestly, I saw that post on Instagram and I'm like, what?
Nope.
What?
You're like, nope.
Because I hadn't seen you in a while, and you hadn't, mentioned anything about the impregnation. So
yeah, I mean, that was kind of my first parental instinct, was keep the baby off the internet.
Yeah, man, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, some people believe that, photos steal your soul. I met this guy in the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and he wouldn't let me take any pictures of him. He thought that photographs stole his soul.
I mean, when they work, they do. Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're up to when you're doing all of your photographs. You're trying to grab a little bit of somebody's soul.
Oh, I don't split any hairs about that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think, that's absolutely true. But it's not like, it's not a possessive soul. It's not your soul. Like, I'm not trying to own you and run you like my sock puppet, but I'm trying to capture some soul for sure. I want those images to resonate beyond my scope, my personal scope. And, the people that put themselves in my work are definitely bringing their, their heart, their soul, their body, like the whole thing. That has to be in there for sure.
How do you choose people? How do you choose how do you, is there something that you're feeling because you're talking about soul, so obviously that's motivating you somehow.
It's really a feeling. Like, there's certain people, I mean, it kind of runs a gamut. Like, you need a level of confidence. Like, the person has to display some kind of confidence, because it's a very, it's a stressful thing to ask somebody to take pictures of you naked. You know what I mean? I'm as vain as anybody else. Like, I don't shoot myself. I don't volunteer myself for this kind of stuff. I've done it, but it's intense. It was intense for me, someone who's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first thing, is like, there has to be something that my models are presenting, that they are either they're somehow grappling with their own physical existence. You know what I mean?
Oh, so you're almost attracted to people that maybe are a little angsty, a little bit like there's some tension there. There's something going on that's buzzing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of my models are dancers or physical theater people in the beginning, especially. Well, I can't say that. No, I can't say that. But they are people who are grappling with it as their art practice, or just their life practice. So I'm like, yeah, let's just put this in a little bit different venue. Like, you're obviously having these concerns, and so I just offer people a way to work it out.
Explore it out. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's fascinating to say that right out of the gate, the process begins right out of the gate from the moment that somebody's chosen. Or
Yeah, and you know, I try very hard to keep my own personal ego in the background. You know, like I understand I'm old as hell, you know, and like I understand how life works. Like my ego doesn't mean shit. Like my choice doesn't mean anything. I'm not selecting you. We're here right now. You know, we're both like
mm,
on this certain vibration.
mhm.
Here's a skill set that I have and you know could bring to this conversation.
Yeah.
And I recognize your, you know, ongoing conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, and that for the most part, that really connects with people.
hmm It's almost
And
like
they,
artists or people that are capturing others in that way are facilitators as much as anything
yep,
else. You know, I tend to like that word facilitator.
yeah. I used to when I was younger. You know, you're like you have all these conceits, right? Like what you're doing, like you're going to be this art star and all this shit. So I used to call myself the Mirror's Apprentice. I think I signed a few things that way.
That's poetic. My God,
Yeah.
you do like to write, and I've noticed in the last 5 years or so, you've started to be more put more of your writing out there along with your images. Has writing always been something that's pulled you along, and you just now started to share it more?
I think so. Yeah, the internet definitely facilitated that. You know, that change. I'm just basically I'm just interacting with the internet. You know, trying to figure that medium out.
hmm
I mean, you're a little bit younger than me, but do you remember that saying, "The medium is the message"?
I mean, I think I've come across that. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that was you know, when I was coming up, all the artists and stuff that I used to hang out with, that was like a big that concept was a big influencing factor. And in fact, I believe it came from the marketing world,
Mm.
and then you know got you know shoved. You know, now it's everywhere. Um, but the internet, you know, that applies to the internet just like everything else. That whole concept, the medium is the message. So we all think that we're you know communicating and expressing ourselves and blah blah blah, but that's not really true. Like what we're doing is keeping the internet full of content. We're
Mm.
keeping it, you know, we're pumping lifeblood into the internet with all our comments and stuff.
Mhm.
So I try, and I fail a lot on this point, but I try to keep my communications, you know, at a people level. Like I'm not. I mean, there is an aspect of like, you know, I understand these words can go well beyond me, my scope, and all that stuff. So I try, you know, I'm trying to be a little more conscious about that and put something out there that's going to have, it's just going to make you stop and have to grapple with something for a second, you know.
Mm. Mm.
We're so used to just clicking through, click through, click through, and I
Yeah.
could do that, you know. I can make a picture that you want to click on, and
Mm.
but that's not interesting to me.
Yeah. The people. Well, you've always, to me, sort of been like a little wild coyote. Uh, maybe that's because
In a good way? In a good way?
um, I don't know if it's good or bad, and you know, it is what it is. I mean, I think it's important that people get jabbed in the ribs from time to time, and in a certain sense, I admire that about artists. That if you're poking somebody in the ribs and you're getting some shit for what you're saying or doing, maybe you're on the right track because you're disturbing the equilibrium. Um,
Yeah.
and maybe the equilibrium needs to be disturbed from time to time because people get on these benders, assuming that the life they're living is cool and everything's copacetic. So
Dude, I mean, you and I both are from California.
yeah,
We now have smoke instead of air for months at a time.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like everything we've done, everything about this society brought us to this. And
Mm.
motherfuckers still cannot, oh, I'm sorry, do you care about cussing?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. So yeah, they still can't grapple with that fact that like our thought processes, our actions, our cumulative push
Mhm.
gave us smoke instead of oxygen.
Mm.
Like you have to sit your ass down, like and really grapple with some shit at some point. You know what I mean?
It seems like
Um,
a value system thing. It's a values system. Uh,
I mean, that's one way of saying it. To me, it looks like a junkie thing, you know, like
yeah,
we're artists, like we've both been in this world a lot. Like I've seen a lot of people get sucked up by that stuff, you know, and like the heroin junkies to me were always the saddest because they were often the most
mm,
brilliant artists, you know, like musicians that I just like love and inspired me and still to this day like inspire me.
yeah.
And they gave their life over to that stuff like willingly.
Mm,
I had this one friend. We fell off each other's radar for a little while. We've been doing some work. I was going to see all his shows and stuff, and you know they were cool. They were rock and roll. It was a cool scene. Dropped off. Didn't see him for maybe 3 years. Like just lost touch.
mm.
Saw him again. This dude had aged. I mean, like 15 years. Like just. In fact, he recognized me. He recognized me, and I was like, "Damn, dude, what? How you been? You know, what's up?" So he tells me the story. He got sucked into it, and in the end, at the end of his whole thing, looking as terrible as he did, and just, I mean, had lost his life. You know, he lost all his shit and everything. He was like, but it's still a beautiful jug. I was just too weak to handle it.
Mm, mm. Yeah. I've never, I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy thing.
Yeah, man. I was like, even through all that, you still can't say a bad thing about it. I'm like, I am staying away from that shit. I mean, it was a big favor to me because I was like,
Yeah.
I pieced it together instantly, and I was like,
Yeah.
cool. And I have tried heroin, like I bumped it. I never mainlined it.
Mhm.
But that was why I was like, there is no way I'm giving myself over to that shit.
Well,
Because
yeah, heroin's one that, man, always scared the shit out of me for some reason. Maybe because I thought I'd like it too much or something, or maybe because of all the musicians that I know and that went down there. And the weird thing is, there are so many musicians that when they were on that were fucking just, I don't know if it was the drug or just that they were amazing artists, but some great material came out of that shit. You know,
right,
I don't know if it just gets you in a state where you're ready to roll and helps. And
yeah,
you just take the risk on whether or not you got to stay there with it. I don't know.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. It was just one of those things. It was a little too far for me. I was like,
all these things are tools, though. There's all of these substances, all of these images, all of these things that we experience are tools.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just a matter of like, okay, are you going to take that hammer and smash your own head, or like try to build something, or what are you going to do with it?
right.
But a
Did
lot of,
you have you seen that? There's a Parliament Funkadelic documentary out right now called "Tear the Roof Off."
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh man, yeah. I'm not gonna break it down for you, but like obviously, like everybody knows that band was all strung out. Like everybody was just like the wildest times.
Yeah.
Apparently, all that shit was George Clinton personally, like running the show like a pimp, basically. He had everybody
Wow.
strung the fuck out. I mean, it got him too, like it got him too.
Yeah.
Um, but it was wild. I just watched it the other night. I mean, P Funk for me is like the source, they're one of those things that is just like they're a doorway into that other realm, one of the other realms.
Mm.
Um, and still to this day, like if I'm too fucked up and I'm like, just all discombobulated with my life, I throw some P Funk on and like give it an hour or so, I'll be all right. I'll be straight.
Well,
Uh,
drugs come in so many different forms, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
this is kind of what Porque la gente está soñando is kind of about, in a way.
yeah,
There. I think that people, of course, that are maybe more conservative about drugs, they hear drugs and they freak out. They freak the fuck out because oh my god, all of the stories that have
but the
been.
doctor gives them a prescription. They're gonna go fill that shit, eat all of it, and not research one single thing about it.
And that's
you
just
know,
prescription drugs are one aspect. That's a little more perhaps easy to figure out, but the stuff that's more subtle to me is what's intriguing. Like
yeah,
how are you getting seduced by your ideology? How are you getting seduced by what is being filtered to you through advertising in the most subtle of ways that's affecting your confidence and what you believe is success?
yeah,
What is that
yeah,
about? How is that
yeah,
affecting you? That to me is very, very much like a slow drip drug. that kind of is going into people's veins. Yes, this thing, I mean, this changed, like we're still adapting to these, to that drug. We're still, I think, figuring out how the fuck do we operate in a world where where we've grown another limb since 2010. We all of us grew another limb. You know,
Yeah.
every right fucking there immediately.
Yeah.
That's a
And
drug.
the people designing the hardware and the software for these things
Yeah.
are very well versed on
Oh my God. Brilliant.
systems of control and systems of manipulation, and like, you know, they're putting all the bait and all the hooks out there all the time, and they're doing it at AI speed.
Yeah. We are morphing with it. I think we're
Yeah.
morphing with it, and it's interesting to see our generation what we're doing with it, and then the next generation how they're going to relate to it.
Oh,
And
dude, my baby's already like, she sees the phone in the middle of all her, because it's around all the time, right? We're taking so many pictures of her, and like
yeah.
our phones are around. She sees that thing on the bed, she's dropping all her toys, and she's going toward the fucking phone.
Oh, whoa.
5 months old, dude. 5 months old.
Fucking heavy duty.
Yeah.
That's heavy duty, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll see where the AI goes next. But let's get into the video. You have some questions, and then we'll kind of roll with it and see where it goes.
Oh yeah. Okay. So real basic, just, you know, the setup, the premise
Yeah.
of the, you know, the visual premise of the video, like your character choices. Like, I was interesting about that because it seems to be, it's not a deep and involved story. I mean, it is, but like what you're presenting is not the involved part. It's just like all this stuff has already happened to all these characters. Now they're in this space together, and it's kind of like a moment of reckoning, right? They're reckoning with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So how did those four characters get in that space? Why are they there reckoning with each other?
Yeah.
In that space?
You know, it kind of starts with the story of the song. The pushers push you night and day. You could no longer stay awake, and so you let it slip into your veins, and you gently handed them the reins. So I just started seeing this character having to deal with some sort of oppression that was subtle, and then I met the woman that's sort of the lead character,
Mhm.
and she just, what happens is people come into my life or I come into their life. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier, and
Yeah.
something about them seems like um, they should be in this. They should be in this project, you know.
Yeah.
And then it could have been a male or a they or any kind of a person, as that person. It's just she happened to appear in my life at that time, and then I
Yeah.
started compiling the story around that. And the man in the chair with the stern face, he kind of fits the stereotype, you know,
Yeah.
of what the men in monkey suits, because that's kind of verse 2, all the
Yeah.
men in monkey suits. And
Yeah.
we're and so these characters are found in this context, and then that the main lead character, she kind of weaves her way through the story to what is a bit of a reconciliation.
Okay, so then there's the other character, the kind of middle-aged woman. So basically, whenever I see three women, I'm thinking stages of life, right? Like that's one character
Mhm,
stretched out over a lifetime or several lifetimes or whatever.
mhm, mhm,
Because the main character seemed to be the youngest,
mhm.
and the next one is a little bit older, and then the old lady on the couch.
That's an interesting way to see it. I hadn't seen it that way. I hadn't thought about it or conceived it that way, you know.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah. So
but
because they seem, because the man was obviously like a trope, right? He wasn't like a person. He was like that guy.
I mean, you could say that all of them are that a trope, you know. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I was. So
mhm.
that's kind of what I was wanting to explore. Like, what are they? What tropes are they for you? What was your intention with like
I mean,
this person's representing this?
yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I kind of identify with, say, the main character, the younger woman that's making her way through the journey,
Hmm.
with all of these influences coming at me, and so I'm weaving my way through this journey, and do I choose to go along with the given story, or am I drawn to something else? Am I pulled out of that weird vortex of a world into something else? Um, the tricky part for me is wanting to be careful when I start to point fingers at anything and say this is definitely fucked up, and I know the way to go.
Right.
You know,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I don't think that that's it's becoming less viable to be the man, the man, like the one who has the right solution. Because once again, smoke instead of air in California
yeah, yeah,
for month. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, don't tell me you have the solution. Don't tell me science is the solution. Science is what got us here. Like,
Well, yeah, yeah. I think about, where science has taken us, and I think again, it's science is a tool, right? It's just science is heroin. Some people use heroin to write amazing songs, but then they get fucked up. Some people go off it. Some people take science, and they,
and
human,
they turn the sky into ash.
and they, yeah. Well, I mean, Hiroshima, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that's science.
Yeah.
So I think there's an arrogance that goes along with science that I don't like. And then there's also a manipulation of science by saying, hey, science proves this. Well, okay, who sponsored your study,
Right.
and so
What
forth.
was the methodology? How big was the sample? Like, none of that ever gets discussed. It's like people are just like, oh, there's this. What does the science say? Well, you
Yeah.
know what? The science is not a noun, for one. So like, let's get this back in the realm of reality.
Yeah.
Because they talk about science and like, do you believe in science? I'm like, it's not a thing to believe. You
Yeah.
can produce data by a scientific method, but there's no belief. Like, that's the data. Like, what you do with that, totally different thing. If you publish it, totally different thing. That depends on who funded it. Like,
I mean,
there's so many factors.
I think as far as the forms that we have, it's attempting to be pure. It's attempting to take out things like religious dogmatism and things like that and get things down to
Sure.
a place where you study it, you have it peer reviewed and all that. But what we have all along the line of the scientific process from hypothesis to proven theory is a bunch of people who are motivated by different things,
Yeah.
like I'm motivated to make some money out of this thing to fund my next study, or whatever it is. And
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is the common I can't tell you, like, every time I put up one of my crazy posts, um, somebody hits me up in the DMs and is like, hey, I got some information, I got this, but like can't really talk about it because, I got this job and blah, blah, blah. Or some friend of theirs in the same boat, like all the time, all the time. Nobody could talk about it because of their job. I'm like, well, I hope your job is fireproof and I hope you can breathe smoke because California is smoke now.
well, yeah, I mean, the one thing that seems obvious to me, I guess, with what we're doing that seems pretty foul and sideways is what's happening with nature and
Yeah,
how
yeah, that's the only thing. That is the only thing.
how we are interacting with it. And to me, that when I say value system earlier, that's kind of what I meant, is that if you have a value system that your country has to be the biggest and the best, that you have to be better than your peers at something, and you keep driving and driving and driving at that, where's the end? It almost feels like humans are suicidal.
Yeah.
Just we are on this bender to kill ourselves, and as a collective, as like a almost like as an entity, in different ways, we're just headed toward the edge because sometimes I wonder if it's just part of this natural cycle of life and death and rebirth that we're just pushing towards. Almost like I wonder if it's beyond what we think we know. It's just some urge to die, to have it start over.
I mean, we are very goal-oriented people, right? And like living is not really a goal. We're already here, we're living. So like what's your next goal? Like, yeah, there you go.
How do you operate? I'm curious about how you operate within that context in terms of your art and what you produce, because obviously I'm driven to produce things. I kick things out. I'm producing things every month.
Yeah.
You're producing things.
Yeah.
Why are you producing things? Why do you
Um,
do it?
this is my conversation, like my art is my conversation with human society,
Mhm.
like and I'm not sure, like I have these kind of conversations on a fairly regular basis, and but there's still so much that you just cannot express. Where we come from, what we're up to while we're here. There's just inexpressible. Like 90% of life is inexpressible by words or other means, really. So yeah, so my work is that, like, I'm expressing something that is I can't get to in other means. You know, maybe physicists can get there. You know, we all describe our situation. We're just describing our situation. Scientists are just describing our situation.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let's
I'm painting you the picture of what it looks like from my perch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of painting it from I've always thought of you as more of a painter than a photographer.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely, my work is definitely in that realm for sure.
Yeah. Because you don't really talk tech too much.
Yeah,
And when I look at your images, they seem kind of painterly. And this last image, I was looking at it last night. I don't know if it's your latest one, but river sunrise, river
oh
sunrise,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a baby there,
yeah,
and I'm looking at this, and it feels like a painting to me more than a photograph, and
yeah,
also feels really intense. Like I don't know if that's what your intention was, but I'm looking at this and I'm going, damn, like like it's not like I'm feeling super comfortable. I see the innocence and the beauty there, and then when the child is looking right into your eyes at the lens, it almost feels like it's coming from deep space somewhere into this material world, and like, welcome to the fucking planet. and and
yeah,
and like there's like the two infants, children that are inside the skull are not having a good day. I mean,
yeah,
as I perceive,
yeah,
they're like looking at each other and they're upset,
yeah.
in a way. And then it feels like there's parents' hands in there too, trying to provide comfort or something like that. But okay, that's my perception of what's going on. Tell me what your feeling is about it, or
Oh
perception.
yeah, no, that's it, man. Like those first couple weeks were how do you say, like completely transformative, you know, of like seeing this person that you're responsible for putting on this planet, you know, like this place that I don't necessarily like. And I brought someone into it.
Yeah. I,
And you know, she doesn't know shit about any of that right now. She doesn't know any of it. But she knows like her immediate environment. One thing I read early on was that babies don't have sensory differentiation. They can't say hear a sound, but it might impact them as tactile.
mm.
You know, they look at something and it could also impact them tactily, or you know,
The senses just are
they
coming
don't
out all at
they
once.
don't know. They have no way to differentiate anything. It's just like here's some noises, like I'm feeling something. I'm just gonna fucking scream about it, you know, and like oh man, I can't even look at half the pictures I took for those two shoots. They were within her first couple weeks of life, so she was going the fuck through it, man. Like
Mm.
there was a couple of nights where she wasn't sleeping more than like an hour at a time, and then she would scream for 2 hours.
Mm.
And I mean, like her entire soul, like the ones that you reference that are in her head,
Yeah.
that was real shit. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even look at the rest of those pictures now. All I see is like this complete pain, you know, this baby was in.
Yeah.
No way to communicate it, no nothing. And like,
But
yeah,
it also felt like in her eyes, maybe I projected this onto it, but there was a wisdom there. Like,
yeah,
all the DNA from millions of years of time are in this child's
yeah,
eyes, waiting to be manifest, waiting to be expressed in this lifetime. And so that's all there. That's a trip to think that
all
that's
there, man.
all there. All the DNA is there in the child's
Yeah.
eyes, and you can like, in some ways, of
And
course, we talk about the wisdom of the child, like being able to, when you're talking about having all these things hit you all at once, all the senses, that actually seems like nirvana, almost like amazing. Like maybe that's what we're trying to get back to the rest of our life, is this state of understanding where things are coming into you and you're not filtering them through, oh, this is touch, this is taste, this is just it. This is all it.
yeah, 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 we are. And what do? We in this life on this planet, we're continually separating everything. We're continually categorizing everything. This is another problem I have with science, like all the hierarchies and categorizations and speciation and all that shit.
Yeah.
You ain't right. Like we're not at the end of evolution. We are not at the end of evolution. Why are you saying that that's this and that's a hybrid? That's just it's existing right now, you know? Like
Mhm.
there's actually kind of a big review of a lot of that stuff right now because of the DNA stuff. So
Mhm.
now they you know, decoded the genome. So they think, okay, this is it. Now we can classify stuff accurately. What's the point? Like, what are you really trying to get to? You know, like, it's not going to benefit us on a small scale or probably even a large scale, you know, like.
Well, it comes down to, which is what the music video and the song is all about. Why are we creating this particular form of reality? Why? How does it that
Yeah, right.
happen to choose to create this form of reality that is defined in this way, and this makes you a successful person? Like, but you know, what do we do with our drive? That's the question to me too. Is like, I'm motivated to create things. I'm driven. Like, for some reason, working turns me on a lot of the time, you know. So what do
Yeah.
I do with that in a way that I guess is healthy? Is it, I saw a quote the other day from I can't remember his name, John Malkovich, and it said, "I'm driven, but I'm not ambitious." So I thought that was interesting. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, that resonates with me for sure. Yeah, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get over. I'm not trying to, you know, get acclaim and stature from this society. Like, this society is just something I don't respect at all. Like, any part of it, really. So yeah, I want to get my piece out there, get my expression, you know, express my viewpoint. I feel like you know, I landed here with a strong viewpoint.
Hmm.
You know, when I was that baby in the picture,
Hmm.
there was something in there, you know, there was some kind of knowledge, and I lost it for sure along the way. You know, you get sidetracked by other people's goals for you and other people's desires for you,
Yeah.
um, and other people's hangups, you know, all the baggage that comes with just existing. And yeah, so that's kind of what it is too. Like, I'm reminding myself of my purpose. I'm reminding myself that this ain't it, you know, this ain't it. It's
Hmm.
it's 10 minutes in the life of a whatever the fuck I am.
And
Yeah.
you asked about the junkie in one of your questions. You asked about the junkie nature of the first part of the song. You know, Porque la gente,
Yeah.
and it it does feel like we are being given a drug, and it's so the trick is like, how do you resist that drug? You know, how do you
Yeah.
how do you you know make your way out of that and yet still live in the world? You know, look, I mean, if you look behind us in both of our images, we're in houses. You've got a Marshall amp. I've got there's a Japanese robe back there. There's
Yeah.
all things. At what point do you decide how much you're going to get involved? I mean, some people go to the woods and live in a cabin. You know, that's how they hate society. They hate the culture. They completely go hardcore. You fall
Oh
so.
yeah. No, I'm not that. You know, I like comfort and all that shit too.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I know when people give me this all the time, they're just like, well, if you hate everything so much, you know, why don't you just move away, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
nope. That's not, you are gonna have to deal with this. I'm a product of all this just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to deal with each other. Sorry.
At a certain level, it feels like we're all hypocrites with
Oh yeah, man, we're stuck. We are stuck.
with whatever thing we're preaching and we're pushing. Then there's something on the other side of us that's not doing that. It feels like, you know. And
Yeah.
how do we reconcile that? And I guess maybe that's where humility comes in, or something. You know. Um,
Well, yeah, you have to approach things humbly. Like, you can't call yourself an adult and not be humble.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just you're not facing reality if your ego is still up here somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
once you understand your place in things,
Yeah.
then you're an adult. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like I'm constantly learning what I'm here to learn.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's where my work comes from. Like, it's a conversation that I'm like retaining with the universe, existence, culture, society. You know, like,
Mhm.
art making is kind of you kind of skip the line a little bit. You know, like, you don't need a degree, you don't need to be an authority. Like, if you got the work, boom, everybody can see it. You know, if that music rocks, there's no question about it. Nobody's trying to check your degree. If you put out a hit song, that shit is banging, Nobody's gonna go check your degree. Did you go to Juilliard? Oh, I used to like it. You know what I mean?
If it resonates, it resonates. Well, that goes back to, like, just other rules that people are putting out there in terms of what is valuable. It's valuable. You're intelligent. You are whatever. If you have a degree and you've studied in this form, and sometimes
Yeah.
I think that helps artists to. I mean, it's helped me when I've gone and taken classes on Shakespeare, for instance. It makes
Mhm.
me think about things that I never thought about, in a certain way. And then there's the whole thing that, you get into a class at university, a graduate or undergraduate class, and everybody starts to talk the same way. And it's like everybody's sitting in the room trying to impress each other and fall in line. The professor, what the professor wants. And I've had some amazing professors that were still egomaniacs, like you have to worship them in order to you produce. I had one professor at Sac State, dude, and I kind of like was like questioning things, and he's like, JD, I'd like to see you after class. And I thought, okay, and I started talking with him and saying what was going on. He's like, I'm not here to talk, man. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You want to fight? You want to actually fucking have a fist fight with me? You fucking dipshit. Like, really? Because I asked some questions in class? You know? I couldn't fucking believe it, dude.
Wait, that's really what he was saying?
He wanted to fucking have a fist fight. Yeah. And this dude was like, and at one level, this dude was like amazing professor, super amazing thinker, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and yet, like, doesn't want me to question, what he's doing in class.
Like, to the point that he's willing to throw fists with you.
Yes. I was shocked. It took me a minute to like figure out what the fuck was going on. But
What'd you say to him? What'd you say?
I was frustrated because I felt like I was writing, and the writing was, it felt like we were writing along the surface of the writing. We weren't talking about it. We were talking about a bunch of shit that felt like it was just, and it would go off on these tangents, and then it kept on happening every time I wrote something. So I was,
Yeah.
can we really just talk about the work? I'm just curious about, I want to learn something here about my work instead of talk around, around it. And boy, that, I guess, I didn't mean it to be a personal attack on him. I felt like it was just like, can we just talk about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I said it in an aggressive way. I don't feel like I did, but even
Yeah.
if I did, to want to have a fist fight over it,
That's awesome.
like,
So cool. Yeah. I mean, I've been at UC Davis now 12 years, and
yeah,
it's wild. Like, I mean, I feel like my expectations of the art world are set in a proper place, right? It's no different from the rest of the society. Like,
yeah.
corporate boardroom, it's all, the art world is concerned with liability, publicity, sales, and profile. Like, they all want high profile shit.
Yeah.
It's changing now. I do see that it's changing largely because of the internet, and like the gatekeepers can't really, like, how many gates can you watch at once? Like, you're losing the thread now.
Mm.
So that's cool. But all those gatekeepers found jobs in institutions. I mean, and it's nice. It's nice getting a regular paycheck. It's nice having health insurance. You know what I mean? Like, that baby wouldn't exist with all that stuff.
Right.
But there's such a, especially from the tenured professors, they're the ones that kill me, because I'm like, you guys are safe. You made it. You got to that spot, and now what are you doing with it?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing with it?
Mm.
And it's nothing. The answer is always nothing. They're working on their own career. The end. It's like,
It's nothing according to you, or according to who? Like, what do you mean it's nothing? Like,
as far as like, pushing, yeah, according to me, for sure. But like, you can, when you have a position of great power, you can leverage that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
uh-huh.
I'm the shop technician. Like, I have no power whatsoever. I continually point out problems, concerns, that the students are bringing to me, just stuff that I see going on. And I'll have to repeat it. I only work with 3 professors, like, directly. I'll have to repeat it to each one of them. You know why? Because they don't communicate. They don't talk to each other. And if they do, they don't communicate that to me. So everybody's just in their own little separate world, tending their own separate business. But it doesn't trickle down to the part where like, oh, we're all working on this expression, this way of expressing ourselves to create this ecology, this artistic ecology where we can all thrive and we can all do our things. Like, nope, you got to come up this way. You got to do this first. You got to do this next. And
Very sterile.
Very sterile. And
Yeah.
there are no Black or brown people working in our department. Like, they're not trying to communicate. Art is not a means of communication to the population that we live with. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to communicate to art history or to the chancellors, like, hey, I just got published. I just have another show, like that's the goal of each one of these individuals. But the department itself is like, man, those students are so confused all the time. They're just like, what's going on? Like, I don't see, how come there's no Latino? I get all the Latino kids. They end up in my office at some point and I'm just like, all right, sit down, it's time for the talk. Like, whatever you thought this place was before you got here, it ain't that.
So when you see Latino kids or African American kids or Asian kids or whoever coming into the department, anybody that has maybe a mentality that is a little bit off than the norm or the given hierarchy, do you see these students sort of then eventually just kind of getting grafted in, and kind of does anybody
Largely no. Largely they just kind of like trickle out. Most of them don't go on to like continue working at. Oh yeah, most of the Latino students especially.
Really?
Yeah, they'll go work and get a job, or a lot of them go into education, but we're not like producing artists is my main point.
Is that true?
Because it's
Everybody that comes through for the most part, or just certain groups or certain cultures?
I think it's probably true for everybody. I mean, it's undergrad art school, like half those kids, like they don't know who they are yet. They haven't really, it just hasn't happened yet. So
Yeah.
you do this because you got to do it, but you like drawing, so yeah, why not take some art classes? I mean, we definitely got some students that like go to Yale and they do go on to grad school and do really well, but it doesn't feel like a concerted effort to get everybody there. It's like, well, some of you are gonna make it, some of you ain't gonna make it. That's the way it goes. Let's keep it pushing. I get that, like you're cranking a lot of people through, but yeah, it's really.
Well, that makes me think though, what is making it? What do we consider making it? And
Yeah.
are we part of a system where making it? We're all contributing to part of saying this is making it. I mean, it's easy to talk highfalutin. If somebody can't pay the bills and pay to have a baby or any of these things, maybe that's where the rubber meets the road a lot of the time. Like that, making it means being able to fucking give yourself a meal every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe, I mean, to me, at some point along the line, I really started questioning what making it was, because I went down, I've done, I was in LA doing acting primarily for a while as I was doing music and still art and other things like that. And it became, after a while, I hit a wall. I hit a wall where it just felt wrong. Like where I was coming from and what I was trying to do felt in my gut wrong. Like
Yeah.
this wasn't resonating anymore. It didn't bring meaning. There wasn't purpose in it. I remember, and I was finally, and I just was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it in this way anymore. But
Yeah.
and so like you talked earlier about when you were younger, you thought about art star and everybody wants to be an art star. So was that part of your thinking for a while too, where you were trying to make it in the way that people were telling you to make it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought that's what you did. You make brilliant work, someone notices you, some gallery picks you up, sells your work for thousands of dollars, and boom, you're good.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So then,
but that's
so then when did that shift and how did that shift for you?
I don't know if it's shifted because like I've never been making my living off of selling my work.
When did the desire shift? It sounds like the desire shifted into some other.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. If I'm giving full disclosure, it was never like my strongest desire.
Okay.
You know, to me, I just thought it would just kind of happen. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay.
But similar to what you just described about acting and trying to make it as an actor, like I just cannot stand the art world. You know, like it drives me nuts. Like it literally forces you into a white space um, to look at art. You know, like there's I don't know. It's the white space. I think that's the perfect metaphor for me. You know, like
Mhm.
even like I've curated a lot of shows. I've been a gallery director a couple times, and the reset color is always white. You know, a show comes down, somebody painted the walls pink, brown, and the space is not reset until those walls are white. I'm like, we are operating off of a white background. This is a metaphor for this whole fucking system.
Mm.
And like when I was coming up, like all the people you looked at, European white dudes, you know what I mean? Like that was
Mm.
even if there's brown women coming in and brown artists,
Mhm. Mhm.
they had to be categorized some other way,
Mm.
like
Mhm.
outsider art or um, activist art. And
Mhm.
I'm just like, this is gatekeeping on a big scale, on a huge scale, and so that world just always kind of like it just pushed. It's just like, what do you
It,
call it, oil and water, like I go into those spaces and it's just pain. It's just constant pain.
it almost seems like if we're trying to shift the normal way of perceiving art, for instance, or whatever,
Yeah,
how do we do it? Because, like, I still would. That's my latest painting back there, and at some point I would love it to be in a gallery, to
yeah.
have a show. Um,
If
and
you do, you're going to go in that gallery and you're going to talk to people about what paintbrush size you used. Is it acrylic or oil? Why did you choose blue for the outside? You know what I mean? You'll talk about every superficial aspect of that fucking painting till you're dead, till your mind is a piece of mush.
yeah,
Nobody's going to talk about, like,
but
there's very few people that are going to talk about like the content of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I guess maybe my way of subverting it is through these conversations. And I get to kind of, to some degree, influence the conversation that happens here with taking it down a
Yeah.
road with somebody that. So I guess maybe that's a way of subverting something, and or at least taking it to a place where you feel like it's interesting or it's enjoyable. And
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of the options that the internet has given us for sure. Like that is one of the, and like you said, that's kind of why my writing became more prominent. Well, one thing is I can't post half my stuff on either Facebook or Instagram without it getting reported instantly.
Mm,
So that was annoying. So I kind of quit putting anything up and just started with my rants.
that's funny. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's cycle back to the video and the song for a second and grab a few more of your questions, and then I'll probably have a few for you, and we'll see where it goes from there. If that's cool.
Okay. I don't know if you want to put this out there, but whatever. You're gonna edit this later. So have you ever been strung out?
On drugs, no, no, no. I mean, the thing.
I know about the other stuff.
I would say the thing that I've been addicted to are just thoughts. You know, um,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I
that's what you
think
do.
that I think that that's why people take drugs and get strung out. I think that some of the brightest people I've known have been junkies. I
Yeah,
They'll talk a million miles an hour, and part of it is the drug, and part of it is I think they just have very quick minds with firing synapses that are sending information around their brain very quickly. They can't succeed in school because they're probably ADHD, and if they can channel that energy, my God,
yeah,
what could happen with that person? Um,
yeah.
so to me, one of the goals is to figure out how do I figure out how to deal with my thoughts and my own mind. It's almost like it's
Right.
it's a lifetime ambition. And when I do art, it feels like it's trying to figure some of that out. Like
Yeah.
where am I? What are my own personal demons? I mean, that character back there, it emerged, and all of a sudden I felt like their arm was wrapped around another figure. and then people started to, when I started showing it to people, oh, that looks like her. So she's kind of wrapping herself up. And so it goes back to the same thing that I keep trying to figure out all these years. How do you deal with yourself? How do you embrace yourself, even though it's kind of a part of you maybe that you don't want there, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so yeah, so if I've been addicted to anything on any kind of a perpetual basis, it would be just processing.
That doesn't count.
No.
That's just being a thoughtful person. Okay, next question. Oh, the Shadow Cowboy.
Okay, yeah. So that would have been
There's something in the picture. What's that?
Yeah, that would make it as far as gender.
That would make it 5 count. Yeah, characters.
That would make it a 6 count, right? Three.
Really? Oh yeah, because the one guy's
three women and then 3 men, at least looking like those women and men.
All right, we're getting abstract now, but yeah, what's up with the cowboy?
So that was a shot that somebody grabbed of me, and so it's one of those things where when I'm editing, sometimes I'll grab a little piece of a shot and throw it on the timeline, and then it'll sort of appear somewhere, and then it'll crossfade into another piece, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? How did that's perfect? It's almost like the gods are at work channeling through, and it got laid right there. I mean, maybe you experience that when you're editing and you drop in a layer that wait, what? And so then it felt like a lot of what this character is experiencing is kind of some trauma, but then she has a guide. To me, that woman at the end is beckoning her. That's how I see it. Yeah. And finally gets her to come over to the couch. And maybe that other character is also throwing a line and saying, here's another way to perceive the state that you're in. You know, here, throw you, drop a dime on you, whatever. It's just, that's how I perceive it. But I didn't have that intention when I laid it in there. I didn't really have a clear intention of, and that's how a lot of it is really. It just comes from like a gut, a feeling, what I'm attracted to, and then later people come in and tell me what they think, and I think it's fascinating. And then I start to say, oh my God, maybe you're right. I didn't even know what I was doing. Maybe it does mean that. Because how am I want to kind of try to get out of my brain in a way and get into the liminal space and let it work its magic in whatever way it can. And I don't know, there's a story there. There's a narrative there. I kind of script it out in terms of the narrative, but I don't always know exactly what I'm going for, because I guess I'm really cautious again about saying this is.
You're saying that footage of the cowboy was something someone else took of you in an off moment?
That was either in an off. I can't remember if that we did some things that were posed that I was gonna maybe put in, and then I think that was just an off moment. I think that one was, yeah. So yeah, just random, you know.
Because I've had a ongoing fight with nostalgia as well. So cowboy to me is 100% nostalgia. You know, it's just American myth making.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. That's
wow.
The only way I can.
This is opening up the whole fucking thing, because that woman on the couch is Native American. Okay.
Yeah.
I chose her specifically in many ways because of that. But again, I saw her. We filmed this just before COVID hit, and so I met her, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the thing. That's the thing that I'm looking for. That's the person that I'm looking for. She's Native American. And then that's interesting that you say that's the cowboy, because that could be interpreted now in a totally different way. And I hadn't thought of that before. See, coming through your eyes, your lens, your perception. And to me, that's fascinating, you know, to think.
This country has a cowboy shaped shadow for sure. Always off to the background, and
that's interesting. Wow. Thanks for that.
Okay, so there's a line in the song that says, you know, this isn't why you came.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, who's you, and what is that referring to?
I guess I kind of feel like, even though there's no evidence for any of this, that we are energy. We are like souls, and
there's a lot of evidence for that.
Is there? Scientific evidence? Is it scientific evidence, Jesse?
Dude, science is so far like it's so far into like shaman territory, like what we would have considered really drugged out like territory when we were young. It's not even funny, and it hasn't caught up to the mainstream anything. Like,
You're talking
there's
about
not really a way you can apply that shit. You know what I mean?
talking about like quantum stuff and things like that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, like fringe science, like what we might call fringe science.
That is not fringe science. That's the nuclear age. You know what I mean? Once we split the atom and figured out what the fuck is going on at that level of reality, and it's in our reality, affecting our reality, we had to grapple with it, and we didn't. All we grappled with was the explosions, the boom boom. You know.
But that stuff,
And so
but that stuff is not published, I don't think, in a way that
it is absolutely published.
it
It
is.
is. Yeah, I see it.
Quantum stuff is published, but it's not. It's not like it's all. A lot of it is theoretical, isn't it? Still, and it's still in the realm of theory.
No, they stopped light. They were able to stop the traveling of light. They've discovered light that can travel faster than the speed of light, which is not possible. You know,
And this is proven.
tested, proven results, published results.
Yeah,
no, I'm not. I'm not in any like weird chat rooms. Like, I get all my shit from the front pages, because I know you have to like read between the lines of stuff, right? So if they're publishing something that is that crazy and that far out, the theoretical aspects are way beyond, you know, like they're way beyond that shit. They figured this is the stuff that people can like understand, so let's put this out there. Yeah, I'm not even entirely certain they didn't really break our timelines, because there's some weird shit happening. We got weird shit happening.
It definitely feels like that, and it also feels like almost whatever you decide can be your reality. You know,
It
and
really does, man. Especially, yeah, with like, I mean, yeah, it really does feel like that. And like, to me, the ones that are most disassociated from reality are the normal people. You know, like like I feel like that didn't used to be the case. Maybe that's just my childish perception.
yeah,
But if you say you're like normal and you want to be like whatever conventional, and you're referencing conventional shit, I'm like, all right, you drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you?
that's one of the lyrics. The one of the lyrics in the song is "Until we dream with the insane," you know.
Yeah.
And so, to me, we buy into a dream. We just keep buying into other people's dreams without saying that, oh, I could dream my own reality. I could have a direct connection to reality and create it as a creator all the time. And
You know what? Yeah.
I don't have to buy into the other dream. I don't have to buy into the religious dream, the scientific dream, the political dream. But it's so fucking seductive to have to choose sides and be part of a team and a group and everything, and to fit in, because we want to fucking fit in. We want to have friends, you know? And so to choose to be outside of all of these different realms, sometimes it's a lonely path, you know, you know, because your friends that are on one side, your friends that are on one side want you to buy into this. Your friends on the other side want you to buy into that. And I'm like, fuck you all at a certain level, you know, you know.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's a bizarre situation. And I don't know if I've mentioned this twice in this interview, but California has smoke instead of air months at a time now.
So like, just for a minute, break down like what you're getting at with that. Be a little more concrete with me on what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my premise is everything we did got us to this moment. Everything we did is fucking wrong. It's wrong, you know, and this is where my junkie metaphor always comes in, because
concrete things like, what did we do that was wrong that got us to there? Like, what do you mean?
Continuing to burn fossil fuels, to base our entire economy on consumerism. Those would be the big, you know, the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Pertinent to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
You know, the reason that our forests are mismanaged, they're not mismanaged. They're managed for the purpose of producing lumber and turning that shit around. Like, they're managed in a very specific way for a very specific purpose. There's no mismanagement about it. And when they started managing the forest this way, it was predicted. People were like, well, this is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to lead to. And all that shit was ignored. It was squashed. People were laughed at. And now California has smoke instead of air for months at a time. So you can't tell me this society is is on some kind of like, it's not evolving up. You know what I mean? Like we used to have good quality air and enough water for people. That's not the case anymore. You have to filter your water just because the pipes that bring it into your house could contain a lethal poison. You know what I mean? The whole system that we got going and that people still cannot bring themselves to talk against gives California smoke instead of air for months at a time now. You have to be able to say, you have to be able to call it and call it what it is, and then take the steps to change that. And we're not even close to there. You know, that's junky shit. That's saying like, well, it's still a beautiful system. You know, I can't breathe, but it's still a beautiful system. I mean, I have to disagree with that. Like my entire soul disagrees with that.
What system is beautiful? What do you mean? Which system is beautiful?
You know, whatever the marketing shit is about America, like freedom, free market. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of marketing bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, the main result that I can tell that it's given us is smoke instead of oxygen.
Yeah. And how in the hell are we going to pull out of that? You know, but I memean, I don't know how we're going to pull out of that unless we change our I guess values, man. That's the word that keeps coming back to me. What do you value? What do you put? What do you put your value? And how do I, in my own way, contribute to this by adding more shit to my life? Like I think about this as an artist, and I'm curious to see what you think. Like, you know, if you want to make some money as an artist, like you have to kind of make prints. I see the people that are making money as artists, as entrepreneurs almost. They're making prints, they're making t-shirts, they're making mugs, they're making all this stuff. And when I see that, something just does. I try not to judge individually, like you're an asshole or anything like that. But for me, I feel like, wow, that's more t-shirts, more mugs, more shit that's in the world. Okay, to produce all those things takes petrol fuel, takes you're making more t-shirts, you're having slave labor in China to make those t-shirts. Like you're part of this system that is continually doing all this to, in your mind, keep the fires going. So where do we all in our own mind draw the line on, okay, maybe I don't make prints of my art now. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't make mugs, you know? You know, like where do we draw the line?
You know, and I feel that deeply because photography is like very old school photography, you know, as a film photographer, and that is just like, you're just wasting gallons and gallons of water, you know, and God bless you if you forget to, you know, go check on your prints when you're doing the final wash, because that shit will be running all night. You know what I mean? And like, it happens all the time.
Chemicals too. Yeah.
And then you're putting chemicals in it, and it's it's pretty fucking heavy. And I'm in a group now on Facebook called Sustainable Photography or something, and they're making prints on leaves. They're using chlorophyll prints.
Oh, interesting.
And they're still using film though, which is, you know, printed on plastic. There's some other, you know, there's chemical process. Like I haven't really, I just joined it like last week, so I haven't really dug in. But my work now, you know, it's all on a giant printer. It's made with all these crazy ass inks, you know, more papers being involved. And once again, you're stuck. Like, well, how do I make a living? You know, how do I, how's that happen? And one of my other groups is, you know, a Chicano art collector group. And I'm just like, please, somebody buy some prints. Somebody buy some prints, you know?
Right. So we're all part of this system. And like, what are we going to do? Where do we draw the line? We're all hypocrites in a way, you know. Maybe I'm not contributing as much as Jeff Bezos is to the problems in the world, but in my own way, I've got to decide where, because I think about this with my website. You know, people start telling me, dude, get your stuff out there so they don't have to pay for the expensive image there. They could just have a print for $30, $50 or something like that, or make it an archival print, or and sell it for $100 with limited run. And I think about this, and I'm like, maybe I'll do that, you know, but It's tricky. What else do you got there, man? Since we don't have an answer for that, maybe I don't know.
So I'm assuming you're. This is speaking of the characters in your video as people
Uh-huh.
now, you know, actors.
Okay.
So the younger female is walking up to the older one, and like the old lady like just locks on her eyes and, you know, holds that the entire time. So is that a directorial instruction, or did that just happen?
Um, I honestly don't remember.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I wanted them to connect. I know that. I remember that. I really wanted them to connect.
Because it stays in keeping with the character, you know, just like,
Yeah.
I mean, you see someone, you make a lot of assumptions about them based on how they're dressed and everything, right? So that aspect definitely um, was true to her character,
Hmm.
the old lady's character. You know, and I found this with women as well, like that they will be more concerned about like you know, like, you know, think of how many women, you know, that like are with dudes who are just like totally out of shape, you know, just totally like, but the dudes are always demanding that women look good, like dressed right, you know, like they're so critical of like how women look. And then they're walking around with cargo shorts and flip flops in public, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they feel fine walking out that way into Safeway. I'm like, you need to get the fuck out of my sight or something. Like that is just a travesty.
This pains my aesthetic. You're hurting my aesthetic, man. You're killing it.
Dude, dude, yeah,
Um,
it's a struggle.
yeah, she connects, you know, and she to me is a subtle guide for the younger woman. She's a
Yeah.
mentor, but she's a mentor in a way that is not oppressive and pushy. She doesn't have like the guy has a collar around the other's neck, and they both have collars, and they're being held by the collar, and they're being led
Yeah.
along this very aggressive way. And her way is more subtle. It's more like you choose. You choose to come
Yeah.
here. I don't want to manipulate you. I don't want to do whatever. And if you notice at the end, you know, they have these these dots on their foreheads, right?
Yeah.
And um, and at the end, the young woman wipes it off, but the old woman doesn't wipe it off. You
Yeah.
know, at the in the end of the day, you have to fucking take it off yourself. You have
Yeah.
to. Somebody can lead you there. Somebody can take you to the place where you can dream your own dream, so to speak. But at the end, you have to clear your own stuff, and
Yeah.
that's like personal responsibility. So to me, like all of the things that we're doing in society now, I think are awesome with rights, with getting rights and equality and leveling the playing field. I'm all about all of that, and it needs to happen. I was in education for years trying to help do that for minority students, and I saw a lot of disparity, and then and then for me at the end of the day, um, I have to take responsibility for myself and make the change, make the shift in whatever way I can. You know,
Yeah.
I have to clear my. I guess it all comes down to me a lot of times for like a battle for your soul. You know, a battle for your soul because all of this. Okay, here's how I can say it clearly. If you're trying to fight for something that everybody else has, are you also still perpetuating a fucked up dream?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like there's no question about it. Like that's the definition.
Yeah. So like I'm trying to get all these things to be equality, but am I still buying into the fucked up dream that they're selling me as I'm doing that, striving for more and striving for
Yeah.
this?
One thing this system loves, and like the main method that this system employs is being in charge of where the goalposts are, right? It
Yes.
constantly
Yes.
frames the conversation. It's
Yes.
like here's inbounds,
Yeah.
and there's the kooky. You're a terrorist if you go that way, and you're a wingnut if you go that way.
Right.
So it keeps those goalposts like
Yeah.
very firmly in place. Now it moves them at will,
Mhm.
but it's always in charge of where they're at.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Uh,
So how do we, I mean,
and,
that's the thing. We got to,
yeah.
if you want to create a new earth, you have to subvert that in its essence. You know, you have to
Yep.
subvert like,
Yep.
you know,
Hold
and
on, I gotta let my cat in. I forgot I locked her up.
go ahead. Hey, man. Okay, dude, you're fucking wearing cargo shorts. What the fuck?
I'm in my house. I'm not in Safeway.
You're fucking wearing cargo shorts, Jesse. I don't want to see that shit.
Cargo shorts and man feet.
At least they're
Yeah,
at least they're camo.
yeah. This is the place where you wear cargo shorts. You don't go to Safeway. I'm not gonna go to Safeway wearing this shit. Actually, I think I have gone to the Food Max wearing these and my Crocs.
Good. I mean,
I'm not above it. I'm in it with all of you.
look, man. Look, every artist group has their fucking rules too. Just like the monkey suit man. You know, the monkey suit to me changes forms depending on which group you hang out with. The poets have their monkey suit. The entrepreneurs have their monkey suit. The fucking corporate, CEOs have their thing. I don't know. Is it? It's a spiritual crisis to me. It's a fucking spiritual crisis.
That's some real shit for sure.
That's how I perceive it. That's how I perceive it. But then when you try to like say what is spiritual, you get in a fucked up mess too, because then you start taking on self-righteousness and saying, "Oh, I got the truth. I know where to send you." And so like that's why the woman on the couch to me in the video is a little more subtle. She's just sitting there. She's not pulling reins.
Which is like pretty much in this condition that we're in, like sitting there is the most revolutionary thing you could do right now. You know what I mean? Like everybody's running around trying to fix this, trying to fix that. My gardening groups, all they are is arguments. Everybody's arguing with everybody like, oh, you can't use any pesticides. You have to use pesticides. There's no other way to control this problem that we have. I'm like, well, didn't pesticides get us into this problem? And you just can't go anywhere. The argument's just like, they do this right now. And then they stay there. And it's like, wow, we really, I don't know if we're capable of pulling up out of this one, to be honest with you.
It's tough because, I keep going through these cycles of being content with where I'm at with my art and then wanting to have a bigger reach. And I'll get to this place where I'm peaceful. I'm doing this. This is good enough. This is like,
and then you fuck it up.
And then I fuck it up. I would say I fuck it up. I would say that. Yeah. In my value system that, but I try to be careful about the judgment of that too, because that seems to me add more tension to it. If I start whipping myself, I'm like, fucking you asshole, but it's just like this cycle. And that's because I think the thing that's being fed to us is so seductive. It's so seductive. You are worthy if you made it in life according to our set of standards. And you keep on falling back to it. And how do you escape that shit to just reach a place where you still have drive, you still want to do the work?
Yeah.
But there's a level of not having to, I don't know, other people say artists are just discontent, and they should be. Like it's just, it's just a matter of what are you discontent about? What's bugging you?
Yeah. But not all artists put that in their work. I mean, there's plenty of work that's, just decorative and looks nice and makes you feel good. And there's plenty of that.
That's true. I mean, everybody has a different take on why they're doing it and what they're about.
Yeah. Because I mean, I get that impulse too. Like, beauty, putting something beautiful in this mess of a, planet, society, everything that we got, that is absolutely like worthy. Bring it out.
Oh, totally.
As long as you're not pretending. Yeah, as long as you're not pretending that there's some way to get to only beauty or whatever. Because there is a lot of that kind of fantasy thought happening as well. Like we all just think pretty thoughts and we all just like focus on positivity, everything's gonna be cool. But yeah, I understand that impulse and I'm with it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll start wrapping it up, but as we do so, I was curious, you're one of the godfathers of cool in Sacramento. You've been around since the days when shit was like, rough around town, and now it's changed. Sacramento has changed a lot, and
so gross. I miss all that rough Sacramento used to be really fun. Midtown used to be really cool.
It was,
You know, there's a lot of junkies, and that was definitely gross, but it's nothing compared to like tech money and like bros on beer bikes. Like that is by far grosser than some guy like strung out shitting on himself in the street. Like I would by far take that back in a heartbeat.
I think I probably would too. So
Yeah, man. There used to be, yeah, it was good.
you know all these changes, and but you know, there's lots of young artists coming up now. There's or people that are getting established or whatever and things like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to ask somebody about giving somebody else advice. At the same time, we are guides for each other, you know, and sometimes even
Yeah.
a younger person can offer us advice maybe that we didn't if something we didn't see. But
Absolutely, man. This younger next coming up generation, they're on a bunch of shit that my generation just avoided, you know, straight up. My generation was very nihilistic, I feel like. You know, we really expected just nuclear annihilation. We weren't going to trip out about it like
yeah,
anybody before us. We
yeah.
were just like, you know what? That's the way today could go.
That really when that's kind of I'm with your in your generation. So it's like I feel that way though a lot of the time, even today.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's a generational thing because if it all goes to hell and blows up, to me it feels like it's just part of this massive cycle of existence that will be reborn and start again. So sometimes I have trouble getting on a bandwagon because of that, because I feel like, well, I don't know. But you're saying the new generation is not like us, maybe in that way. There's a different
It,
drop.
it seemed to be grappling with like, you know, societal issues. I mean, gender shit, you know, like they're really taking that head on. Um, and it's all important, you know, like those small details are symptomatic of the whole, you know, binary. Like this society is very I
This,
remember the moment I took a class one time in logic, and it said something about polemics. You know, it just explained what polemics were. And I was like, damn, that is what passes for discourse in this country. It's not let's bring in all the factors and let's weigh it all out, you know, put it on the table. Not in the popular arena. In the
right,
popular arena, it's like you got left or right, pick one. You got blue or red, pick one. You know, you ain't with us, you're against us, pick one.
right, right.
And it's just such nonsense. It is childish nonsense. It is literally bullshit that I heard all the dude bros, you know, growing up in high school and all that shit. You know, they're sophomoric, like tying up the teacher because they just want to like waste time in class. So they're asking all these questions that get nowhere. Even if you answer it correctly, it's still gonna say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that eats up the entire time. That's what I feel like this whole society is. It's just asking pointless, besides the point questions,
Mm.
and then it's time to go get dinner. Now we have smoke instead of air in California for months at a time. You know, I want to do a covers album of all the like hippie songs that came out about California, because there's a lot of them, right? Like the Beach Boys got that one. Every song that references California and California living, even the hip hop songs is shit.
Mm-hmm.
But insert like this fact now that like we got smoke instead of air now. Yeah, you're gonna go.
I've been surprised that you haven't gotten more into music through the years as a music creator, as a composer or something like that.
That's my own personal problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a hang up for sure. Actually, I want to remix this song. I put that in one of my questions.
Oh, really? Okay.
I want to do some Andy Warhol shit, you know, to Your Velvet Underground.
Do it, man. Do it. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, here's the problem. I don't know how to remix anything. So you're gonna have to show me how to do it.
Do it.
Yeah, it's funny. While I was listening to it, because I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you're like this. I don't know if everybody's like this, but like, I think it's a natural impulse to see or hear something. And you're like, oh, I would have done this. I would have done that. I would do this differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Definitely.
I don't know if you're up for that level of like collaboration, but
Oh yeah. I mean, to me, I used to be way more protective about music or whatever I was creating, to the point where I probably would have been a way better band leader if I would have been a little looser.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I learned that through the years to just shut the fuck up and let go of the reins a little bit.
Let her rip. Yeah, that was another thing that I got from George Clinton, who's a conniving piece of shit by all accounts. I'm never going to be able to mention his name without saying that now. Like, okay, George Clinton, genius, also a piece of shit, lying, thieving piece of shit. But he was like, his philosophy of that band was, all these people know what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to get in the way of that. Get them in the room and just let them rip. He claims to have never done rehearsals. He's like, you don't rehearse if you know what you're doing. If you got people know what they're doing, you don't rehearse. You get them together. Once the thing comes together, you record it and you keep moving. I was like, that's some next level shit.
Well, that to me, like there's some beautiful things that come through on creating that way. So there's some looseness. You can see it in people's paintings when there's a looseness to them. When there's
Yeah.
you know, and when it's rigid, you can see that too.
Yeah.
But a lot of it comes down to almost like what you prefer to see and what you prefer to vibe, because some people like it fucking all controlled in little containers, and
Yeah.
they like that, they feel safer or whatever they feel. I mean, to me, actually, a lot of the time, I like a lot of my life in a container. I fucking make lists every single day, and then.
Yeah.
And then because maybe there's so much chaos going on in my mind that I need a container to at least give me some feeling of safety and security, so all the fucked up shit doesn't drive me off the edge, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, and everybody has to decide where that's gonna be.
Oh
But,
yeah.
but I was shocked that you hadn't done music in some form or other. It just
I
seemed
probably will now. I probably will.
good.
No, I want this baby to like play music, you know, like
Uh-huh.
she already has playlists. She was born with the playlist going
Yeah.
when she was born. It's been a very important influence on my life, you know, my whole artistic development and everything, just the way I approach everything. Like that is my medicine, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
can't.
so
Yeah, for me, when I paint, I put on the music, man. I have to have. I almost have to, but then sometimes it's weird when you're playing music all the time and you're doing a piece of art. You shut it off and you have silence, and you just hear the brush hitting the canvas. That's a fucking trip too. Then that like takes it to a
yeah,
different place, which is interesting. But
right, right.
a lot of the time, the music just like, um, I mean, what how do you know, how do you relate to things like a spiritual life? Like how do you feel like you have a spiritual life? Or, and that word's kind of fucked up because it takes you down the path of a bunch of dickheads that are like hardcore new age stuff that becomes its own
Yeah,
rigid system. But like
yeah.
what what kind of like as a you know drives you in the soul? Like is there something, is there a form it takes, or is there a um, something that
Yes. Short answer. Okay, two short answers. First one is I don't believe spirituality is up for discussion. You
oh,
know,
okay.
that's the first thing you have to work out as a responsible human being.
Mm.
It's not up for discussion. If you're letting someone else like give you that and put it into you, you're moving into other territory. That's marketing.
Now,
Uh,
let me stop you real quick. That seems kind of rigid. That spirituality is not up for discussion.
it's not. It's the most personal thing. It's an inexpressible thing, you know. And like with my work, I mean, there are aspects of it that come out, but it is inexpressible, utterly inexpressible. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna tell me you know the name of God? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear it at all ever. But that said, like, you know, I do cultivate it. And like I think the first um place that I get to that is in nature, you know, like that's my first communication always. Like I, you know, I say I'm a gardener, but like I'm not trying to get a lot of tomatoes. In fact, I'm not a very successful gardener, you know, like I'm using this yard to have this communication like,
Mm.
hey, what's going on, man? Like asking nature. I am asking the earth,
Mm.
what is up with you? How are you doing today? Like what's, you know, it's a conversation I'm having directly.
Mm.
It's not theoretical, it's not spiritual, it's a direct communication.
Mm.
And there's no way you can translate that. I don't know how many languages you speak, but there's never a one-to-one translation, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I say that. That's why my rigid thing. It's not that it's not up for discussion. It's just that it's not really possible to discuss.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I guess when I think about it, I get what you're saying very much so.
Yeah.
Like anytime you're going near the Holy Grail, you're you're not at the Holy Grail. Like you can't call it the Holy Grail. Um,
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time, there's something about communion with souls that feels really good. And sometimes the communion goes through the intellect, and there's just it can get you back toward that relationship with the soil if you've fallen away by having a conversation with a friend about what is on your soul or something, and it can take you back to where you need to be. And so the discussion can
Yeah.
help. I guess that's where I see
Absolutely.
value in
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But it's interesting you
Trying to
brought up,
get to the thing.
yeah. But I like that you asked me how many languages I spoke because I thought you would ask me why is the chorus in Spanish. I thought you would at some point you would ask me, you know, like you look kind of like a white guy. Why is this fucking chorus in Spanish? Were you not curious
Because
about?
you're no, I'm not curious about that. You're from California. Of course you're gonna speak Spanish.
Well,
I know where you're from.
well, okay. Part of what might give me street cred is my grandmother was born in Mexico.
Mhm.
My uncle, my aunt was born in Mexico. Then my grandpa moved back to Mexico. They all lived there. My dad was the first one born in the States, and so they were all Russian. But there is definitely that the Mexican culture in there somehow. I don't know exactly how it expresses itself, but it feels very much like when I would speak with my grandma, I would speak with her in Spanish first, and then a little bit of English, and then I knew some Russian words, but very few. And so
Yeah.
um, that language, Spanish is like a second language to me, and it feels like when I hear those words, they almost feel like they take me to more of a dreamy place, or something because it's not immediate in my mind when I think of when I think about things. But then I hear a sentence in Spanish, and it even sounds better somehow to me. Some things just sound and feel better in that.
Well, because once again, like that whole thing, like a language comes from people, not the other way around. Like, I mean, there's a reciprocal relationship, right? But like your language is expressing something that your people know, that your people have cultivated out of the earth from their direct experience,
Uh,
and they formed a way to communicate about their direct experience.
yeah.
Um, and nobody else in the world lived where you lived. They didn't experience what you experienced. Like that language is part of the place that it comes from.
Mm.
So to me, like seeing anybody from California use Spanish as, part of their expression, like that just means you're from California. You know what I mean? And the fact that you're using Spanish and English, even more so, it's like, yeah, of course. Like that's how my family talks, like they're the half the sentence is in English, half is in Spanish. And like, that's, that's the reality of this place.
Let's talk about
If you,
let's
yeah,
talk.
it would have stood out if you would have done only something different, I think.
Oh, really? So it's just this combination, it's this fusion. Um, but how do you relate to Spanish and English? Like, do they
Oh,
do they do they feel different to you? Does one language provide one thing and one provide another? Because your family, where's your family from originally? Like, are they all California native?
uh,
Or
well,
were your ancestors born in Mexico or some other place? Like, where are you from?
my great grandparent, most of my grandparents were born, I think half were born in Mexico,
Okay.
but they were all right around the border somewhere, like definitely they all came up, migrating to California for the agriculture work.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, who knows? But like this is still, Spanish, like I've never been to Spain. Like I never understood as a child why Spanish was my language. It's supposed to be my language,
Right.
I was like, like, okay, Spanish, okay. But culturally, like I get it. Mexicans have certainly, there's Mexican Spanish and there's Spain Spanish,
Right.
like those two things
Right.
are separate.
Yeah.
So, I it resonates. It's part of me. It's in there,
Mhm.
but I don't consider it my language. I think my language is my art. I really think that I put enough conscious effort into my work to like kind of stake out my own territory and like this is what I'm talking about. And when my work is up, like I said, you know, when I first started out, like you go to these art openings and shit, and you end up, someone pigeonholes you, and like they want to know what kind of lens you use and all kinds of just like, you know, besides the point shit. Now I've got it to a point where that doesn't really happen anymore. So for me, like that's kind of a point of success that,
Nice.
you know what I mean? So I feel like I've staked out that turf, and people grapple with the work in a way that takes us both out of our the technical details.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're okay. Well, now we're in this whole other thing. Like we got to deal with that thing now, and yeah, it's very liberating. It's so refreshing
And
to have finally gotten here, but it took, you know, 30 years.
I like how you say that's success, that you developed the language. That to me, that sounds fucking amazing. I don't know, that really resonates because, you know, you do it long enough and yeah, you start to develop your own way of describing things. And then if you're consistently do it, then eventually everybody else, yeah, starts to maybe speak with you in your own language to some degree, or they know where you value, you know.
You know what? Yeah, you know what the cool thing is things like this. We're like, you know, we work in two different mediums. I mean, you work visually as well, but not. I haven't seen any of your photography. You're like video, painting, music.
I
Right?
don't really do photography as I don't. Yeah, that
Yeah,
much.
so completely different mediums.
Mhm.
But you understand, like you know what I'm going through. Like
Yeah,
you know that there was something there that we can converse around and with and about.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, because you see it in the work. You know, like
It's
that's where it's at.
the language. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing that I like about a gallery, I guess, with that in mind, is that when somebody's in that space and they're looking at your photographs, they're looking at my paintings or my videos and things in a space in a larger format. Um, it feels like a temple to me. It feels like you're going to a place where you can have an intimate relationship with the work. There's probably a bunch of shit that goes around with it that's fucked up about the whole system, but I
Yeah.
still I still love the sense of going into like even a museum and a space that feels like people are quiet and they're I don't there's a reverence to it. You know, I mean, how do you feel about that part of it, you know?
I appreciate that as well. I have an appreciation for it.
Hmm.
Uh, I never feel as good in a, you know, art space as I do like in a fucking dirty ass abandoned corner where there's some weed growing, you know, like with no light, no water, no nothing. That motherfucker's cranking out some flowers. I'm like, that's impressive shit, you know, like for
Yeah,
me.
interesting.
That's where that's my church. You know, I'll go visit anybody's cathedral for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
But you do show in
and
gallery,
there,
right? You
I
do.
do show in galleries. Yeah. No, I definitely want that interaction. I want, you know, I'm in the mix for sure, and I want to stay in the mix. And I value these kind of interactions. You know, this is the whole reason I do it. Like, it's opened up a lot of avenues for me, you know, of inquiry, of discussion. It's put me in touch with a lot of like brilliant people, and there is brilliant work that should be experienced in a dedicated space, you know, dedicated art space.
That's what I mean, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Like the
But like you said,
Mhm.
the baggage that comes with it is like, man, you can't forget that either. And I just cannot, you know, when I'm in California and the sky has been smoke for over a month, and I walk into an air conditioned 5-story, 12,000 square foot building, I know what that's costing. I appreciate the fresh air, but I also know, you know, that's part of the whole.
there's a lot of energy that goes into making us comfortable. A lot of
Yeah.
energy goes into air conditioning and, you know, this world that is very
25% of our carbon emissions are due to energy consumption.
yeah.
25%. So
Mm.
right now, what we're doing, totally contributing to it.
Right?
It's gonna
Right?
be housed on servers, you know, like this is all gonna be saved because you're recording it, right? All those servers are gonna run 24/7 for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, we're gonna be immortal. Yeah. We're immortal now.
Yeah, immortal.
So the thing I was getting at as we close here is, what what would you tell younger artists, like you, through your experience and what you've experienced as an artist? I mean, I don't even know if you feel comfortable with that kind of a question, but people do look to people who have been through things to shine a little light. Is there something that you would say has meant a lot to you? And we've already discussed a lot of it, but maybe more specifically, because you work with a lot of young people. It sounds like you say you have discussions with people in your office, right?
Yeah. First thing is, if you're going to create work, if you're going to create work for external audience, because you can draw in your notebook and not worry about it, right? Like, take that pleasure, enjoy it, and you don't have to make it. You don't have to be acknowledged. But if you're going to put it in the public, and if you're going to put your work in the public, you have to accept what's going to come back to you from that.
Yeah.
Don't fight it. Don't let your ego say like, oh, I put it out there, but I wanted this kind of reaction. You're going to get the reaction that you get, and that's what you got. That is that's what you did it for, And I think a lot of people discount that experience because it's negative, or like I said, someone's talking about like what
critically
technical aspects are in it, but that, you put your heart and soul into it. You just have to take it all and just let it wash over you. Like that's the conversation of the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be the first thing. Just take it. Don't get wrapped up in like, you didn't make the work to explain something. You know what I mean? Maybe you did, but that only applies to you. Everybody else who approaches it is going to get their own thing from it, and that's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. The other thing I would say is you got to trust yourself. There's so much second guessing within creative practice, and it never goes away. It just never goes away. Like I constantly still do it, but I produce work. And at some point, even if I'm not trusting myself in this moment, I trust myself when I started this project. You know what I mean? I trust that decision that I made. I trust in my ability to get this thing done. Even though right now it's all falling apart, I'm questioning my entire existence. Why didn't I just go to become an accountant and all that shit? I trust all these other things, and then I get the work done.
Knowing, almost like
it's that knowing. It's that, and it's not the knowing of external validation. It's the knowing of like, yourself, where you're coming from, and once again, not up for discussion. You can't. That's one thing I got to say to the young kids too. Like, you can't put everything up for discussion. Like, it's good to talk about stuff. It's good to process things and all that shit.
Yeah.
But not everything is going to benefit from that process.
There's a holy space. There's a most holy space. That's how I kind of refer to it in sometimes, that like when you go into the most holy space, you've got to really tiptoe and be careful, and maybe that is just between you and the powers that be, and that's a sacred thing.
You take your shoes off and you sit there with the attitude of respect.
Yeah, and sometimes you're right. You just don't share that shit. Maybe that's between you and whatever it is.
It's just not possible. You can make the attempt, but it's going to be corny. It's going to be some corny shit. And that's not true. That's not true universally. Like, there are some artists that got there, and like laid that shit down.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at Basquiat today, a little quote from him today, and it said something about, I learn art by looking at a lot of art and experiencing. Right. And I thought, oh shit, but that's dropping a dime on you. That's sharing, that's expressing something in one simple sentence that can like open a door for somebody, And the last thing maybe is, as you were talking, what I thought about was, as people begin to ask certain questions, and maybe you only understand that if you've been through it enough at the time, but you can create the conversation as you go along to go back into your own language. Like you can guide and steer it. So somebody asks you about a 70 millimeter lens, all right? You can sort of answer that a little bit and then just drop right into your language. Now, whether or not that gets published or whatever, that's up to them. But you can kind of keep bringing it back. And I think people for a while don't realize that they're intimidated by journalists or their art critics or everybody else, because the art critic kind of steers the conversation. But I do think the artist or whoever has the ability to kind of like bring it back to the language and guide the process a little bit. And then maybe
But in order to do that, you got to trust yourself.
you do. You do.
Yeah.
You do. And that sometimes is hard to do when you're young, especially because fuck, whoa, this guy is asking me these questions. He's 40, 50 years old with all this experience and all these degrees. I don't know shit, and
and then, once again, like a lot of these instructors are very ego based, and they're in a cutthroat world, and they're bringing that energy to the classroom.
Yeah, they want to fight you after class.
That's incredible.
Sometimes literally. Cool. Well, Jesse, thanks a lot, man, for taking the time. I appreciate it. I've always appreciated your work, and I like where you go with it. I like where you're coming from. I like where the tension is in it.
Cool. Thanks for reaching out, though. I appreciate you asking, man.
Thank you for the conversation. Thanks for putting in the time, and have a beautiful day.
Yeah, you do the same.
All right, dude. Ciao.
Take it easy.